Rob didn't care that he had forgotten his book bag, because he had more pressing matters to concern himself with. Today, he was responsible for starting the day and the week right. It was his responsibility for keeping a time-honored tradition from the weeks, months, and generations before him, flowing flawlessly as everyone in the first grade has done time and time again. It was Flag Day, and it was finally his turn to post the flags. He missed his turn last month because of an altercation with Cindy Millsap. She said he was stupid when he said 8 times 8 was 63. So in a fit of rage and embarrassment, he said she sucked green donkey dicks. Mrs. Parker heard what he said, and instead of calling his parents, she decided he would miss recess, and he wouldn't get his turn on Flag Day. It upset him, but missing a recess and his turn on Flag Day was a far better punishment than having his parents called. Plus, he liked Mrs. Parker, she was fair, and he liked her even more for not calling his parents. He sat at his desk, looking at the clock, impatiently waiting for the school bell to ring. He wanted to get on with it. He wanted his day in the sun. He heard laughing behind him and turned to see Billy Schultz, Tommy Fraser, and Wendy Pullman pointing at Cindy's shoes. Evidently, she wore 2 different tennis shoes to school today. The one on her right foot was black, and the one on the left was pink. How could she make a mistake like that? It was sort of funny, and Cindy looked dumbfounded like she just discovered the 2 different shoes herself. She started crying when Billy said she was colorblind. Rob didn't care. That's what she gets for calling him stupid last month. Mrs. Parker rushed into the room and headed straight towards her desk. She sat her purse on her chair and began to rummage through it. After not finding what she was looking for, she dumped its contents on her desk, spreading her knickknacks all about her workspace. She stared at her items like she was trying to become familiar with them once again. When her familiarity didn't come, her expression changed to worry, and she would have stayed in that state if it wasn't for Frank Broser tugging on her skirt. Frank told Mrs. Parker that he had forgotten his lunch money and asked if he would be able to eat lunch today. Without looking at Frank, and still giving her goods her utmost concentration, she replied, "Yes, Frank. Everything will be fine. Just make sure you bring it tomorrow. Now get to your seat. Class is about to begin." Right on cue, the bell rang. Frank made his way towards his seat. Cindy stopped crying. Billy and his bully crew stopped teasing. Everyone started to sit, while Mrs. Parker put everything back in her purse, one item at a time, in a desperate attempt to remember what she was looking for. Rob sat at the edge of his seat. It was almost time to post the flags. Mrs. Parker began roll call, not in her cheery, happy-to-be-here musical voice, but with a drab, not sure what's going on monotone. A few kids took 3 calls to say "here" when they were called upon. Mike Masterson never answered. He just stared out the window, looking at whatever had his unenthusiastic attention, and raised his hand. Mrs. Parker didn't care. At least he was here. After roll call, Rob headed toward the closet to retrieve the flags. Albert Hanks, the stinky kid, sat closest to the closet. He also wasn't moving. He sat with his elbows on his desk, head resting on his hands, mouth open, and the longest strand of drool in the world hanging from his lips. Rob didn't give him a second thought. He grabbed the flags and headed for the front of the classroom. Rob knew what he was supposed to do, but with each step he took, he found the procedure was slowly slipping from his mind. What was it? The state flag to the left and the American flag to the right? If that was the case, then it would be the state flag to the right and the American flag to the left, because he was opposite and had the flags in opposite hands. And if that was so, he would have to put the flags opposite, because he was the opposite of the class. Unless he faced them, then it would be right, but the flags were opposite in his hands. He would have to switch them, then turn around and place them where they needed to go. But that wasn't right either. He looked at the flag in his left hand and couldn't remember if it was the state flag or the American flag. Should it go left or right? Billy Schultz witnessed Rob's dilemma and yelled, "The American flag goes to the right." Rob moved to his right, and Tommy Fraser yelled, "No, that's the wrong flag. That one goes left." Rob attempted to go left, and his classmates roared. They yelled, "Wrong one." They screamed, "The other one." They bellowed, "Not that flag." And Rob soaked it all in, trying to figure out which flag went where. Not only did he hear his classmates' shrieks, He also heard a foreboding chaos throughout the school and the world beyond. All wasn't right on this Flag Day. Confusion and fear kept him in his place, with flags in his hands that he had forgotten where they must go and what they represented. He looked to Mrs. Parker for help, and she sprung from her chair to help him through this quandary and to fulfill his duty. Mrs. Parker was almost at his side when she too stopped suddenly in her tracks. In her eyes, Rob could see the unbridled fear as she recalled what she had forgotten. "Oh my," was all she said as she stood unmoving, frozen in time, a statue of dread, that will stand until muscle gives way to fatigue, or the mind grasps that of which it fears most. Rob was immobile, but he was able to see Mrs. Parker. He saw a flow of blood run down Mrs. Parker's leg and pool in her flats. He could not see behind him, but he knew his classmates weren't better off than he and Mrs. Parker. They were all silent, unmoving, trapped motionless because of their own fears. He did not hear anyone throughout the school or the world outside. All he could hear were the robins singing their courtship songs and the howl of a warm spring breeze.